Hello. It's good to be here. It's been a wonderful time in Singapore. It's quite a bit different because I have snow back home. So everyone says, oh, is it so hot out? And it's like, no, it's not. It's beautiful. So today I'm going to talk to you about the power of access because I think access is one of the most important things, the best things that you can give somebody with a special need. But a little bit about me. I'm from Jamestown, North Dakota. As they were saying, it's quite a bit north. It's not quite to the North Pole. However, it's a very rural state that I live in. The state that I live in is probably about twice the land size of Singapore. And the whole entire state, there are 600,000 people. Okay? So it's a very rural state, and we have two of our biggest cities have 200,000 of those people. So we're really, really rural. And one of the things I noticed when I got to Singapore was the traffic. Because, there's traffic all over and then to taxis and everything like that. Well, one of the things is we do have traffic problems also in North Dakota. So here's a video, or not a video, but here's a picture of a traffic jam in North Dakota. There we go. So that's one of the traffic jams that we have to deal with. We also have another type of a traffic jam. There we go. So we do have traffic issues also. But one of the things is several years ago I started doing a lot of speaking, and one of the things I started talking to about, not only within special education, but within education to educators all across the United States, was about assistive technology. And a lot of people would ask me questions, what is assistive technology? What do you do as an assistive technology specialist? What are some of the things that you do? Well, about the students that I work with in the center that I work with. Well, at the center where I work, just to give you an idea of what the center is, for those of you that weren't in on my earlier sessions, we're a private nonprofit center that's located in North Dakota. We have 54 kids that stay at our center residentially. And then we also see about 10 kids that come in for our educational services from the immediate area. We also have outreach offices that are located throughout the whole entire state. And one of the things that those outreach offices do is we identify kids at a very, very young age that are at risk or newly diagnosed with autism. And what we do is we go into their homes and we intervene in their homes, and we also go into their schools, the schools that they're going to go into, and train their teachers before those kids even hit the schools. And what our hopes are that if we're doing a good enough job at intervening, that eventually they will not be referred to our residential program and they'll be able to be served in their home school districts. So in essence, if we do a really, really good job, we're going to work ourselves out of a job. Again, like I said a little bit earlier, I hope that eventually happens, and then I can probably go into a less stressful job like the stock market or something like that. But about 70% of the kids that I work with, that I deal with, are on the autism spectrum. And the other 30% of the kids that I work with, probably most of them have severe medically fragile issues. They're vent dependent. We have 24-hour nursing. We have a doctor that's on staff. So we really do have a lot of kids that have some pretty unique needs. So a lot of people were asking me, what do you do as assistive technology? And I would tell them that I hook kids up to the computer, I do switches and everything like that. They didn't quite understand it. So I put together a video that really kind of encompasses what it's like to provide kids with assistive technology. So here's a video I put together on it.
What if I had something to say and had the world to listen? Would you listen to what I had to say?
It really is about finding those tools that make a difference. Now, a lot of these photos we're taking from a camp that we do every year. For 1 week, what we do is we load up every piece of assistive technology that we have in our center. We load them up in the vehicles and we take them out to an existing camp. And we bring kids into that camp that would typically not be able to go to a camp because they're in a wheelchair or because they're on the autism spectrum, and they would not get accepted to the camps. So for 1 whole week, we bring them out there and we let them try out any piece of assistive technology that they want. And we give them that opportunity. And once they try out a piece of assistive technology and once they have access, then we start letting them access things like we do adapted art. We do adapted music. We do adapted photography. We do adaptive videography. We give them opportunities to be able to explore those things that they want to do, plus give them a full camp experience, of a traditional camp experience. It's one of the most amazing weeks of the whole entire year for me. It's one of the most exhausting weeks for me, but by the time you get to the end of the week and you see these amazing things that these kids have done, it truly is a moving experience. One of the things when we do our camp, it's not uncommon that you'll see a kid in a $25,000 wheelchair with a MacBook Pro and a digital camera on the end of the dock on the lake. And you don't think that's a leap of faith. We've seen all that out there. But we give these kids these digital cameras and these computers, and we say, go out and become artists. And they'll do that. So in the 10 years that we've been doing these camps, we've only lost 1 digital camera and 1 MacBook Pro the whole entire time. And I broke both of them. The kids didn't do them. They were fine with them. I was the one who broke them. But again, it gives them those opportunities to be able to look at those tools and try out those tools. And that's why it was very heartwarming today to see some of those projects that were highlighted earlier, where the artist, we're working with the artist, I think is amazing. And we saw the gaming. Just amazing projects that really make a difference for kids and engage those kids. And there's other projects that will allow them to explore the artist within. We started a project a couple years ago because out of camp, we were seeing these amazing pieces of art these kids were making, and they were going home and they were sitting in the shell, maybe going into their closet under their wall, but nobody got to see them. So we created a project called Accessing the Artist Within. So there's an online art gallery, and then we go to one of the major conferences every year and we show their art, and the kids get to come there and talk about their art because we want to celebrate those things that they're doing. So really, one of the things that we take a look at is we really take a look beyond, let me go back here a second, there we go. We really don't look at the disability anymore because that doesn't do anything for us. What we do is we take a look at their ability. And once we take a look at their ability and we start considering their abilities, we start providing them with access. And once we have access, we have accessibility. And once we have accessibility, we can take a look at the possibility of making what was once impossible for these kids and making those things possible. And once we make those things possible, we give them the power of access. But not only do we give them the power of access, we give them the power to access. We give them the power to access their education, their world, and their dreams. I'm going to tell you some stories today of some kids where the technology has really allowed them to be able to do each one of these. And this happens all the time. Because it's really more than accessibility now. It's accessing abilities. It's putting those tools into the hands of kids to be able to maximize the ability and give them the opportunity to do those wonderful things that they can do. Access became an extremely passionate thing for me and an extremely important thing for me about 14 years ago. I got called in to do an evaluation on this gentleman. This is a friend of mine, Brian. Brian lived about 40 miles north of where I live. And Brian worked for the county. He was a farmer. And he went through a series of 3 strokes. And he lost absolutely everything. The only thing he could do is blink his eyes and move his chin. And that was it. And so they called me in to do an evaluation for him because what he was doing is he was in a nursing home, and they would wake him up in the morning, push him in front of the TV, and he'd watch TV all day. And someone would come in and change the channel for him every once in a while. So his family called me up and they said, is there any technology that you can do that will allow Brian to do those things or allow him to do some things besides just sitting watching TV? I said, I don't know, but I'll come in and take a look. So I got called in to do the evaluation, and I walked into the room, and there was Brian with his whole entire family. So again, maybe a little bit of pressure on me at that point. But one of the things when I walked in the room, I looked, and the first thing I remember looking is in the back of the room where Brian was, as I looked into his eyes. And when I looked into his eyes, I could tell that there were so many things that he wanted to say, and there were so many things that he wanted to do, that I had to find some sort of a solution for him. The other thing that I noticed around the room is there was these notebooks scattered all over the room, and paper scattered all over the room with like that on them, and pens all over the room. And I didn't quite know what was going on and why we were seeing that. And then I looked up in the wall and I saw this. And I asked his family, I said, well, what's that on the wall? They said, that's how Brian communicates. I said, well, tell me a little bit more about that. Well, what we do is we go up to Brian and we say, is it B through J, K through R, S through Z, or a vowel? And when we get onto the right line, he looks up, he blinks. And then we say, is it a B, C, D, F, G, H, or J? And when we get to the letter, he looks up. And then we write that letter on that notebook. And then we go to the next letter. And then we go to the word. And we do these sentences. And that's how Brian communicates. And he came up with this on his own through this blinking. And I looked at that. I'm going, oh, that's pretty simple. Because I can turn that into this on a computer. And I can do a scanning system. So Brian could move his chin, so I just took a simple switch and put it underneath, mounted it underneath his chin. And I set up a scanning system. So I set it all up, and I brought it up back a couple days later, and I did the exact same scanning system that was on his wall. And I told Brian, what you need to do is you hit this switch, and the computer will start scanning line by line. And when it gets to the line you want, you hit that switch again. And then it's going to go letter by letter. And when it gets to the letter you want, you hit the switch, and it's going to send that command to the computer. And you're going to be doing this on your own. You won't need the notebooks anymore. I said, okay, so Brian, spell your name for me. Well, again, I told you earlier that this was the same scanning system that Brian had on his wall. It was the same except for this button down here, the one that said www. So I told Brian, spell your name, and he started scanning. He missed the first line, went down to the second line. I'm thinking to myself, oh, he didn't quite get the concept of this. He gets down to that bottom line, and he knew how to spell his name. He didn't have to show me that. But what he wanted to do is he wanted to know what this www was. And what this www was a link to open up Internet Explorer and open up the home page of his hometown newspaper. So Brian scans, and he gets to that line, he hits the switch, he scans over to that, he hits www, and his hometown newspaper opens up on his computer. And at that moment, Brian starts crying and sobbing uncontrollably. He's shaking in his chair and everything like that. I'm freaking out. I thought, what did I just do? So his wife is there, and she's crying, and his children are there, and they're crying. And I go, can you tell me what's wrong? Well, Brian couldn't do the scanning because he was shaking so uncontrollably at that point. So I told his wife, can you find out what it is? So they went back to the blink system, and Brian blinked out, you've just opened up my world. And that switch really did. It opened up the world for him. Because now Brian, with that little switch, had access to do all those things. So Brian he never spent any time in front of the TV anymore. He spent all of his time in front of the computer because he was going out to the internet and searching the internet. He was emailing his siblings, his brothers and sisters from all over the United States and keeping in contact with them. He was watching what his granddaughter was doing for basketball and baseball games. He was sending letters to the editor of the town telling him how crappy this town was being run. He would send out emails, he would send out between 75 to 100 emails every single day. In fact, he actually had 3 email lists. He had a clean, an off-color, and a filthy list. And he put me on all of them. So I could never open up my email anywhere. But now he had access to do all those things and connect up with people. And that little switch gave him all that power. Went back a couple weeks later after I set him up and everything like that, and I said, Brian, is everything okay? And he goes, no. He blinks no. I go, what's the matter? Well, he opens up this Word document that's got all this stuff in there. I want to know how to download music. I want to know how to get to videos. I want to know how to do video editing. I want to know how to burn CDs. I want to do all of these things. So we started doing that, and Brian became a very, very dear friend of mine, and he's the one who challenged me and put me on the path where I am today, because access became just such a passion for me. One of the things when you're working with kids, always, or anybody, always assume competence. Always assume that there's so much that they can do and so much that they want to see. You want to always assume that they understand everything you're saying, and you want to push them beyond their limits, because there are so many times that we just assume that this is the level that they're going to get to. Shoot high for these kids, and assume that they can get and they can reach all of these levels. One of the key things that we do is we always look at universal design and looking at tools that are in our computers. And universal design is an approach to design of all products and environments to be as usable as possible by as many people as possible, regardless of age, ability, or situation. Now, I talked a little bit earlier about universal design. Universal design came out of the movement a couple years ago, or several years ago in the United States, to making our buildings accessible for persons with disabilities. So they put in curb cuts, they put in ramps, they put in elevator and lifts to get into the buildings. They put all those accommodations in so a person with disability could get in. But what they found out is that the tools that they made for persons with disabilities made sense for everybody, because everybody was using them. So that mother or father that are pushing up their baby buggy up onto the sidewalk, were using that curb cut, or the skateboarders were using that curb cut. They were using the ramps to get into the buildings. The UPS drivers that were carrying in packages were using the automatic door openers with their elbows. It was a tool that was made for a person with disability, but it made sense for everybody. So what we look at is all those tools that can be built into the operating system on our computers that will allow anybody, regardless of what their ability is, the ability to be able to access these tools. So there are tools for access, tools for everyone. So when we talk on the computer, some of the things to take a look at is VoiceOver that's built into our Macs and the screen readers that are built in. There's the text-to-speech that you can highlight text and have it read. There's zoom magnification, screen magnifications. There's keyboard shortcuts. There are cursors. You can change the cursor size. There's built-in dictionaries. We have spell and grammar checkers for those kids that have a hard time with the grammar. We have speech recognition now that's starting to come into a lot of these devices. And we have iChat, the ability to be able to connect up from anywhere in the world and find information and keep people connected. Really, really powerful tools that are actually built into our devices. Once they have access to a whole bunches of tools, plenty of tools that are available on the computers. They have photography apps. You have music creation apps that are available. You have video editing apps. Many different ways that kids can bring in the curriculum and consume information, but you can also have it that they can create and give them tools to create and be expressive and become artists. We also have access then to word processing docs, so they can start doing word processing. Using spell check, you can help those kids that have a difficult time with spelling. There's presentation software that they can use. They can make presentations. They can show what they know. There's powerful tools that are built in that they can access. And also to spreadsheets. Again, many of the kids that I work with aren't big, huge number crunchers, but we can use it in our classrooms to do visual representations of charts and graphs to say, what does a half look like in a square? What does a half look like in a circle or in a triangle? We can do that using these tools. So we talked a little bit earlier about accessing their education, accessing their world, and accessing the dreams. I want you to meet Levi. And Levi is using technology to access his dreams. Now, Levi, I did an evaluation on Levi, and I recommended a scanning system similar to what Brian used. And I went back a year later, and he wasn't using it at all. And his teacher called me back and said, we need to set something else up. So instead of asking the teacher why Levi wasn't using it, I went right to the source. And I said, Levi, why aren't you using it? He said, I don't know. It's easier for me to tell the teacher what I want to write down and those types of things. What I failed to do when I did that evaluation is I failed to find a way to engage Levi and give him a purpose to use that device. So how do we engage our kids nowadays? What's a tool that we can use? We saw another group earlier today did it. Gaming, exactly. So I showed him how to play games and using his Switch to play games. So here's Levi's story. And listen to all the education and all the learning that's going on because he verbalizes it.
Alright, you want to play it that way? He has a diagonally, so I'm gonna try to block him before he gets 3 in a row again. I have you. It's like all the other laptops, except with a different program. That's why I like using it. It's really fun when I'm playing games because I'm trying to win, but I'm trying to block them at the same time, so I get really kind of a strategy as I go along. I've only played tic-tac-toe and checkers, and once I played Connect 4, and that was alright. It wasn't the best game. I like this game the best. Oh yeah, I think this software is really great, and I'm glad you made it. I don't know what I'd do without it.
I don't know what I'd do without it. So powerful because now he had this tool. He had control of his education. He had control of his world. So what he started doing at that point is Levi started putting together PowerPoint presentations to show what he knew. So because he couldn't write, so what he did is he put PowerPoint presentations. He did research on the internet. He was able to copy and paste. He was able to put these PowerPoint presentations together. In that video, you saw that Levi had a laptop that he was using. Well, that wasn't his laptop. It was one of his speech therapists. And when he moved on to the next level, when he went from junior high to senior high, that laptop didn't follow him. Okay? But that didn't stop Levi. Levi put together a PowerPoint presentation, called a special meeting of the Board of Education, and did a presentation to the Board of Education of why having his own computer was important for his education. And he got it. So that's the power of putting the technology into the hands of the kids. So the other thing is the iPad. The iPad has really been leveling the playing field for the kids that we work with. It's been giving a lot of our kids, especially those kids on the autism spectrum, the opportunity to do so many more things than they were in the past. And we're seeing so many anecdotal and qualitative evidence that this is really making a difference for the kids that we work with. We're working right now at getting some quantitative data so we can prove that these devices are really making a difference. But it really has made a difference for the kids we work with. And there's an app for that. There are so many apps that are out there. There are over almost 750,000 apps that are available on the App Store today. And there's going to be one that makes a difference for the kid you work with. There's apps on accessibility. There's apps on communication, curricular support, hearing, language development, literacy and learning, organization skills. Any of those skills or any of those needs that we have, depending on the ability of the kid, there's apps that are out there for them. So I want you to meet Tyranny. Tyranny was one of our early adopters of the iPad. She was on the autism spectrum, and she had some issues with, she needed to have an aide with her all the time during the day. So we introduced her to an iPad, and we have a buddy that comes in and a volunteer that comes in and works with her. And so I call this, and she's accessing her world, because she's accessing those things in the world, coming out of that shell. So here's a video I call Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Super cool. This one, orange, lime. Oh, pineapple, raspberry. Oh, pineapple, pineapple.
The main thing that we are using it with Tyranny for is to work on her turn-taking and peer social interaction. Her friend Nora that comes into the classroom a couple mornings a week, they take turns playing games, doing educational programs. In the very beginning, there had to be a staff sitting right there to prompt Tyranny when it was her turn, when she needed to wait. Now, her and Nora can sit, and once the program is up, they can take turns. If Tyranny does need prompting to wait her turn, her friend Nora will give her the prompt and say, "It's my turn, you need to wait." No staff is needed to sit there. They are two little girls playing and having fun with the iPad. I don't think when Apple came out with the iPad that they realized just how important and significant it was going to be for students with special needs. It has just been incredible. The quality of learning for students with special needs and for our students in the classroom, the easy access, all the different apps. It's just very versatile, easy to take, mobile. It's just been a life changer for some of our students. It's fun, it's games, and entertainment, but they don't even know they're learning. They're learning in the process, and what's better? You're playing and you're learning at the same time. It can't get much better than that.
So did you guys see the aide in the classroom? She wasn't in there. Actually, I told her to go on coffee break while I videotaped. So I sat in the back of the room with my camera, and those two girls sat there for a half an hour, and they played different games, and they did various different learning activities. And so we've given this young lady independence and the ability to be able to do some of those things that she wants to be able to do. I'm going to introduce you to Sadie. Sadie is a pretty incredible young lady. She came out to our camp initially, and I'll let her tell the story. But technology has allowed her to be able to access her world, or access her dreams. And the story's not over yet, so bear with me. But here's Sadie's story.
I love editing videos. I had always wanted to give editing videos a try. About 5 years ago, I was attending a technology camp. I watched one of the instructors editing the camp video. I told him that I wanted to learn how to edit video. He told me, why not? So he set me up on an iMac with an on-screen scanning system. I had never used a Mac before. I had never used the scanning system before. and I had never used iMovie before. I use switches mounted off to each side of my head to control my computer. With those two switches and an on-screen scanning system, I have total control of my computer. I use one of the switches to move through the selections, and I use the other switch to select the command I want. I have total control of the mouse and keyboard commands. What everyone else can do with a regular keyboard and mouse, I can do with my two switches. I love editing videos. I return to the technology camp every year as the official video editor. I now am learning Final Cut Express. I am also learning iMovie 09. The accessibility features and apps on my Mac have opened up a whole world of possibilities for me. I hope to have my own business someday, and I can teach others how to edit too.
So she does have her own business. Started putting together photo videos for weddings and anniversaries and birthdays and those types of things from her place. We'll hear a little bit more about Sadie in a little bit. But the technology has really given her the opportunity to do some things. I want to talk to you now about what I call the moment. And the moment happens almost every time that I'm able to be a part of providing access for a child. It's that moment where the student takes access and they realize that they're in charge of their world and the whole world is ahead of them because they have control of that. It's that time when, and I usually know it because the hair stands up on my arms. I can feel it, not on my head, but on my arms. But I feel it, and it's just one of those things, you get this chill because you just realize that you've opened up, you've given the tools to a kid that's opened up their world. And this actually happened at our camp a couple years ago. This is Amanda. And Amanda came to our camp, and we set her up with digital photography. And she was able to take a switch and take a picture for the first time. So she hit the switch, and she took a picture the first time. And I was sitting in there, and all of a sudden the hair went up on my arm and everything like that. And I looked around, and I said, "Did you guys all see that?" I said, and the moment, and they go, "Yeah, the hair's up in our arms," stuff like that. So anyway, she took the picture for the first time, which was amazing. I turned around, and there was a guy that was doing a documentary on our camp. He was standing behind me with the camera rolling. So he actually caught that moment. So I'm going to show you guys the moment here. Did you like it when I put it there?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to Velcro this down so it doesn't move around on you. Let's try it again. Let's hit that switch. All right.
Nice.
I want that. I'll take that home.
Yeah. All right. So what you can do now is you can go out in the camp and take as many pictures as you want. Okay, so I'm going to slow that down for you really quickly because the moment came not when she took the first photo because I'm the one who prompted her and gave her it's when she took that second one by herself. So I'm going to slow it down and you'll be able to see the moment. So here we go. She takes the photo. Now watch, she's going to go look in the screen because it's going to show the photo that she took. She sees the photo she took. There's the moment right there. That's why I do what I do. Because now she knows that with that switch and that access point, she has access to do those things that she wants to do. So the next day she came in and she said, "I took some photos yesterday. Now I want to edit them." So we put her in a scanning system and put her into iPhoto. She could do editing. And this summer she came to camp and she got her own computer. She got her own scanning system. And guess what she wants to do? She wants to edit videos. So the best thing about the whole thing is Sadie came out to camp, the video editor. She was sitting in one side of the room and she was mentoring Amanda and telling her how to do scanning. And those two girls were sitting in there. One is now is the teacher and the mentor, and the student is the learner. Just an amazing, amazing thing to see. I'm going to talk to you real quick about tossing starfish. And this applies to everybody. Sometimes we think that it is just too overwhelming what we're trying to do and make differences for kids. And I found this story when I was getting my master's degree, and I always said it was so fitting of what we try to do. And this is a story that I heard. Is a gentleman was on vacation, and he was staying on a beach, and there was a storm that came up over the night, and all these starfish had blown onto the beach. And the beach was actually just littered with starfish, and he was walking down the beach, and he noticed on the other side of the beach there was this lady in a dress, and she was dancing. She was dancing, and she was bending over, and he couldn't figure out what was going on. So he got closer and closer and closer to her, and he looked, and what she was doing is she was reaching down, and she was grabbing starfish, and she was throwing them back out into the ocean. And she'd spin around, and she'd grab another one, and she'd throw it out into the ocean. And the guy said, "What are you doing?" She goes, "I'm throwing starfish back out to save their lives." And he goes, "Well, you're not going to be able to. Look at all the starfish on the beach here. You're not going to be able to save your lives." She reaches down, she picks up the starfish. She said, "I saved that one." So you can save one kid at a time, make a difference for one kid at a time, and make all those changes, because it really does make a difference, and it pays forward, like in the case of Sadie. Another quote that I came up with, and this is what I want to talk to you a little bit about today, is do those projects. And we saw that group, again, that groups today that are out there doing things in their schools and are being the leaders in the schools. And sometimes it's not always easy being the leader, because other people are going to take pot shots at you, because sometimes they're kind of jealous. So I came across this quote. It says, "Your playing small doesn't serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that others people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same." So go out and make a difference, be that leader, and make a difference for these kids. One of the things that we do is we give kids opportunities to do the things that we never thought that they would have the opportunity to be able to do. This is an activity. A couple years ago, there was the Family Motor Coach Association in North Dakota, where, those big, huge mobile homes. Well, they had their convention, and they came in, and there was like 10,000 people in town. And they chose our school as their charity of choice. And they asked me, they said, "Mark, can you get up in front and talk about what we do at the center and what you do with assistive technology?" And I'm going, you know what? No, let's let the kids show what they can do, and they can let us know what they do. So what they did is what you see here is the kids were up on stage. One night during that week, there's a big concert. And during that concert, you're supposed to get up and talk about what you do. So this was that concert night. And you'll see the kids are up on stage here, and they're using switches and an adapted keyboard to play music. Okay? What you don't see is what's behind them. There are 7,000 people that are behind them listening to their music. They were the opening act for the band that was playing that night. And it was an amazing thing to see, because the kids, when I was practicing them with them, they couldn't get it right. I was sitting there going, because I'd be pointing to them, they wouldn't get it right. So I'm going, well, this is going to be a little bit interesting. Never missed a beat that whole time in front. And you can tell by Tyler, he really enjoyed himself and was proud of what he did. But give him the opportunities to do those things. We do a camp every year. And when we talk about what we do at our camp is we give the kids opportunities to do things that they've never been able to do. Because sometimes these kids are not able to go into a lake, and the first time we give them a lake, or a pontoon ride, or go on a hay ride. We give them those opportunities to do those things. So one day, I'm out in the lake taking pictures of the kids swimming. And I looked up on the dock, and I saw this. And I said, this is really symbolic of what we do, isn't it? Freeing kids up from the things that are holding them back and not letting them do the things that they want to be able to do. The kids were in the water swimming like every other child, and their wheelchairs were on the dock. And I think technology can also allow us to be able to do those things, to free those kids up, to be able to do the things that they want to be able to do. This is Adam. You can see Adam is quite involved. He's a single switch user. He's calling bingo here. Typically, the staff at the camp, they would call it bingo. He's using that single switch in order to play bingo or call bingo. So when I was out in that lake that day, one of the counselors came up to me and said, "We want to take Adam on a jet ski ride." And I'm going, "Oh, I don't know, boy. Look at all the liability issues. He might get hurt and everything like that." And the counselor said, "Mark, what are you always telling us? Give these kids a chance to do some of those things, and give them those opportunities." I said, "You're right. Okay." So they gave Adam his jet ski ride. So, and you can probably tell that Adam enjoyed himself. So that night, I called up Adam's mom, and I said, "Do you think it'd be okay if we took Adam on a jet ski ride?" And she goes, "Yeah, I suppose it'd be okay." I said, "Good, because we did it this afternoon, and he loved it." So it is about giving those kids that opportunity. Oops, hold on a second here. So we talked about Sadie, and Sadie got her own business, and she started using more advanced apps. She actually went from iMovie, she went to Final Express, and she went to Final Cut Pro, and she was using that. So I got this harebrained idea that I think Sadie can really, I'm going to see how far we can take it. So I contacted one of the universities in the United States, and I got her a 2-year scholarship to go to school to pursue a degree in cinematography. So she's going to school starting in about a month, less than a month here, to get a degree in cinematography. Because what she wants to do is she wants to learn how to be a cinematographer, edit videos together, so she can go around the world and videotape people who have disabilities and how they use technology to overcome their disability. That's her goal in life. So she's going to school. Well, it just so happened that we had another documentaries crew that was coming out, and so I invited Sadie over because they were going to do a little bit of a documentary on her. She didn't know yet at this point that she was getting this 2-year degree in cinematography. So we actually captured the moment that she found out that she was getting the degree. So here's the documentary on Sadie. Sadie and I actually met 8 years ago. She came to the school for an assessment, a PT and OT assessment, and we looked at what her computer setup was at that point. And you want to tell them a little bit more, Sadie?
I was a senior in high school. I had an appointment at Jan Carlson Center to meet with an occupational and physical therapist, and that is when I met Mark Coppin. Mark introduced me to some technology that he thought I might be interested in. It was then when I started attending Camp CrossFit Technocamp. This is when I first became interested in film editing. I realized what I was capable of doing independently with all of the technology that was available to me. My outlook on my future became promising.
Basically, at that point, we introduced Sadie to a scanning system. It is a very, very physically hard thing to do because you have to control the scanning system with switches that are mounted off each side of her head. So she really needs to go down line for line till it gets to the line that she wants, and then hit another switch and go button by button until it gets exactly where she wants, and then that will send that command to the computer. So it's a lot of work, but she's gotten it down to where she's got it into shortcuts, so we're looking for those things that will speed her up. But it's allowed her also to grow within the software, because she started out with iMovie, and very quickly within iMovie we found out there were limitations. So she decided to go to Final Cut Express. Then she outgrew Final Cut Express, and we needed to go to even more robust and give her more control, and that's why we went to Final Cut Pro.
I have such a passion for film editing that I have been able to excel beyond my own expectations. There is a whole new world out there for me to become the independent woman I had been dreaming of for years.
Exactly. So actually, Sadie has the ability now with the technology that's available to her to be able to do those things and to realize her dreams. And one of the things that Sadie doesn't know, but just recently I talked to Full Sail University, and you are getting your full to go to film school. So you're going to school. So are you ready for this ride? Exciting stuff, though. Yep. So we're this is that one step, the first step in making that dream come true for you, and it's going to be a lot of work, and we're going to push you really, really hard, but we know you're going to do it. So stay tuned. That story is not even close to being over at this point. But one of the things I'm going to leave you with is I want to make sure that you guys go out, and I want you to, whoops, I got one more slide left to go here, a couple more here. There we go. I want to thank you, but I want you to go out and I want you to empower your kids. I also want you to go out there and inspire your kids and the staff that work with those kids, and most of all, I want you to believe. Believe in your kids, believe in what they can do, because they're going to make you extremely proud one day, I can guarantee it. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you very much. We're going to move into the Q&A segment.
Okay.
So I'm going to invite Mark to take the couch there.
Oh.
So want to really thank Mark. I think I speak for everybody when I say we just love listening to all those stories. And thank you for empowering us in thinking about how to make the impossible more possible for our kids. So as I said to everybody earlier, you had given me your questions, and I have before me all your questions. We're going to see the questions now. The first one I'm going to read out has the highest votes, 71 votes.
Wow.
Yep. And they keep flashing in front of the screen. So I'm going to read the first one out. It says, I would like to know if it is difficult to develop apps. It would be wonderful if the SPED community here could create a team to develop apps customized for our own children. Can you comment about development of apps? And I think the question is right up there.
Yeah. Actually, no. I don't develop apps because I don't have time. Because I'm doing that. But what I do is work with app developers. I try to get to know as many app developers as I possibly can, and I have input into their apps to make changes. And an example is Proloquo Go. I know David, who developed Proloquo Go. In fact, I had a copy before Proloquo Go was even on the App Store. So I like to try to get a hold of these app developers. You guys also have an app developer in a couple of them in Singapore here. The person who does the picture AAC, utilize him. Tell him what kind of apps you want, because you know what? That's their business, is developing apps. And approach him and say, you know, here's a bunch of apps that we are thinking of that we would like to do, and go ahead and do that. But the other thing is take a look at some of your kids in some of your high schools or in some of your colleges, because there are kids that are starting to develop apps. There's one of the students, not a student, but our principal's son used to hang around with me at the center, and he would come in and he became a Mac freak like me, and he decided that he really liked it. So at 17 years old, he developed his own app. So now I have this app developer if I really want to have somebody do that. But find the picture AAC guy and say, you know what, here's an app that we would like to have in our school. What's it going to cost? What are we going to be able to do? And then I can't remember the name of the other app developer, but there's a couple of them that are in Singapore. Yes. Oh, I thought maybe if he knew the name of the app developer. But, oh, you do? Okay.
Basically, I met this guy a few days ago, Ko Keng Hua, who is the founder of the Hearty Spin. also the one who developed the AAC.
Yep.
Actually, I also spoke to him about developing apps. So actually, I shared with him his idea, and he says okay, and he actually referred me to the Republic of Polytechnic to actually help me to develop these apps.
There we go. So again, find those resources and that are local, because the nice thing about having a local resource for app development is they can come and visit you, and they can visit the kids that you work with, and they make a better app because they have that grounding. So.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to another question, and this is, I think, relevant to many of our schools here. How do you implement a whole school approach in using technology? What kind of knowledge and skills are required? Would you need someone with good IT background to be driving this initiative? And Mark, I'm just going to tag another question on, which is about parents. So, I mean, in the idea of the whole school, many parents don't understand the importance of ICT, and how do we convince them?
Sure, sure. So the how do you get IT implemented in your school? Well, first of all, you need to have your teachers aware of what IT resources are out there. You need to know, they need to know what kind of technologies are there. That's why when you come to these conferences and you see this single switch software or the scanning software, just to be aware of what is out there as far as all of your so.
I think we are reaching the end of our time with, but if there's one more last question, I think we can probably take one last question and then we're going to round up. Is there a last question from the audience? Okay, if not, then it leaves me to thank and deeply thank Mark Coppin for joining us these 2 days and really inspiring us with wonderful knowledge. Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We would like to present a token of appreciation to Mr. Coppin. May I invite Mrs. Loh Yo Teck Yong, Director, Education Services Division, Ministry of Education, to present the token of appreciation to Mr. Mark Coppin. Mrs. Loh, please.
Thank you.
This art piece, entitled Garden of Flowers, is the work of Juni Shafiqah from Spastic Children Association and is based on the elements of batik painting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Loh.
These kids are really in my heart, and this type of stuff really means so much to me. So thank you very much. Thank you.